Hi, I'm Ken Kessler, and welcome to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. If you're new to this podcast, I want to start by saying thanks for joining us. If you're not new to us, welcome back. Either way, I'm very glad you're here. Now, to avoid any confusion, I want to start out by saying that there won't be any music played here. This is a place for conversation. I'll talk about Christmas music and some related topics, sometimes by myself and sometimes with guests. If you're looking for music, just go to soundsofchristmas.com and click on the tree or the player on the front page or on the Listen Now page. We play the best variety of Christmas music all year long. Well, except in October when we play the best variety of Halloween music. This past week marked the 36th anniversary of the Live Aid concerts in London and Philadelphia. Bob Geldof, who had been most well known as the lead singer of the band the Boomtown Rats, and Midge Ure, who played guitar for Thin Lizzy and led the band Ultravox, were the two men behind the event. Well, there were lots of people behind the event. Those two spearheaded it as a follow-up to their 1984 charity single, Do They Know It's Christmas? The two men collaborated on the song as a way they hoped to raise money for famine relief in Ethiopia. The song became the biggest selling single in the UK up until 1997, when Elton John's tribute to Princess Diana overtook it. The song reached number one in 13 other countries outside the UK, though the United States wasn't one of those, due mostly to a lack of airplay. The song received a lot of criticism from the get-go. Some critics referred to the artists as Bland Aid. Others had issues with the lyrics, particularly the line Bono sings, "Well, tonight, thank God it's them instead of you." About 10 years ago, Midge Ure said, "It is a song that has nothing to do with music. It was all about generating money. The song didn't matter. The song was secondary, almost irrelevant." That song featured an amazing array of talent from the UK who had been asked and had even been begged to perform. That included members of U2, Duran Duran, Culture Club, Bananarama, Spandau Ballet, Heaven 17, Status Quo, The Style Council, and Wham! Also featured were Sting from The Police, Jody Watley, Paul Young, and Phil Collins. Artists that couldn't make it to the session but recorded some messages, which were used on the B-side and on a special extended version, which we occasionally play on the Sounds of Christmas, include members of Big Country, Holly Johnson from Frankie Goes to Hollywood, David Bowie, and Paul McCartney. Do They Know It's Christmas was reissued a year later, where it almost topped the charts in the UK again. The main difference in this version was that it was remixed by Trevor Horn, a British producer who had been part of the band The Buggles, remembered for their hit Video Killed the Radio Star, as well as his work with the progressive rock band Yes. The new single also included a new B-side entitled 1 Year On, Feed the World. That track began and ended with a recorded phone message from Bob Geldof and Midge Ure, reciting a list of what had been bought with the money raised during the previous 12 months. In 1989, Geldof got a new production team to record a new version of the song. The artists this time were referred to as Band Aid 2, which included members of Bananarama, once again, as well as members of Big Fun, 10cc, the Pasadenas, Bronski Beat, and Wet Wet Wet, along with Kylie Minogue, Kathy Dennis, Chris Rea, Lisa Stansfield, and Cliff Richard. This version was not nearly as successful as the first, though part of that was due to the fact that it wasn't released until the second week of December. Still, it did manage to hit the top of the charts on the UK singles chart and on the chart in Ireland. In 2004, Coldplay's Chris Martin had the idea to put together a 20th anniversary version of Do They Know It's Christmas, and he contacted Bob Geldof and Midge Ure about making it happen. This time around, the artists were known as Band Aid 20, and the group included members of Keane, All Saints, Radiohead, Queen, The Darkness, The Divine Comedy, Snow Patrol, and Travis, as well as Chris Martin from Coldplay, Bono from U2, Natasha Bedingfield, Joss Stone, Dido, Beverly Knight, Robbie Williams, Phil Collins, and Paul McCartney. Damon Albarn, the singer from Blur, was on hand, but he didn't actually perform. Instead, believe it or not, he reportedly served tea to those who did participate. This version hit the number one spot on charts in 9 countries. In 2014, Bob Geldof assembled another group, and this time they were called Band Aid 30. The charity was changed to aid those affected by the Ebola crisis, and lyrics to the song were changed to reflect that. Bono from U2, Chris Martin from Coldplay, and Roger Taylor from Queen all returned for this one, and they were joined by Ed Sheeran, Sam Smith, Paloma Faith, Sinead O'Connor, Seal, and members of One Direction. The single hit number 1 in 6 countries this time around and landed at number 16 on the United States Adult Contemporary chart. While we're still a few years away from a potential Band-Aid 40, there have been many singers and bands that have recorded their own version of Do They Know It's Christmas. Most of these artists weren't a part of any of the 4 official versions, and there isn't much info on whether all or any of these support either charity associated with Band-Aid. Still, you can find versions of this song by Bare Naked Ladies, Slade, Pete Yorn, Little River Band, Air Supply, and the cast of Glee. Even though the Live Aid concerts took place in the middle of July, Do They Know It's Christmas was performed during the London part of that, since the song was really the catalyst for the Live Aid event and for many charity singles to follow, including USA for Africa's We Are the World. It was performed by Paul McCartney and a superstar-studded lineup at the conclusion of the part of Live Aid that took place in London's Wembley Stadium. Earlier that day, Paul Young also performed about a minute's worth of lines from Do They Know It's Christmas before he sang his set, which was between Brian Ferry and Bryan Adams. Anyway, that's a bit of what comes to mind for me as we mark 36 years since those Live Aid shows. Thanks for listening, helping me share some Christmas spirit, and for helping this podcast continue to grow. We're on about 24 different podcasting sites. And since you're listening to this now, you've obviously found us somewhere. If there's another site you like to use for podcasts, check out our podcast page on our website for the complete list of everywhere you can listen to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. Again, that website is www.soundsofchristmas.com. Then just click on the podcast tab. For the Sounds of Christmas station, to listen to the music, you'll need to stick with our website or our app in the Google Play Store. If you have comments or suggestions, feel free to reach out to me on social media or through our website. Thanks again, and may you always believe in Santa Claus.